Okay, so I'm going to start to teach you guys a little bit about some black and white in Photoshop. Now, there's a number of different ways that you could do this, and if you've already watched the videos that were in there, they give you some really good ways to do that. I'm going to go over a few of them pretty quickly here. Now, in Photoshop, there is a let's start with this weird bird. Remember we saw this guy dead on the side of the road? This is before his death. This is pre-death. This is PD, we'll call it. I took this picture in the spring. Maybe it was this is an American coot. Maybe it was a different one. I don't know. But we did see a dead American coot. I'm hoping it wasn't this one. Oh my God, you dropped your mouse. Okay, now, one of the destructive ways to do black and white is I can just go up over here to image to the top, and I'm going to go into mode, and I can just go grayscale. Boop. And it says discard color adjustment information, and I say okay. And there we go. It's black and white. Done. Now, what this is called is destructive black and white. So it actually asked me, do you want to get rid of all the color information? And I said yes. So it got rid of it. So this is not really the best way to do black and white. It's also you lose a lot. So it's not awesome. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go back over here. Now, another way that you can do black and white, and this is probably a pretty good way, is you actually go over here to the bottom, and you're going to go over here to where it says black and white. And this is an adjustment layer that we're using. So I click it. It turns to black and white, but then you see I have these colors. And what this is doing is that the way that the black and white works is that it still has the color information from the photograph. So I can actually take this red and I can move this slider up or down. I can move it up here or I can move it down the other way. And it actually, you can see, oh, it's really laggy. You can see that it changes the picture depending on how much of the red I've got in there. Now, this particular picture, now see I've taken a lot of the red out. So it's basically converting the reds to darker colors. So I'm going to say I want the reds to be a little bit lighter because this particular animal has red eyes. And you can see if I make this red a little bit more lighter, look at the eyeball. These eyes because I know that there's grass on it. I'm going to take it this way. You can see how much darker it is here. So I can go make a difference with that if I want to as well. I'm in direction because I want this guy to stand out. And I can do some work with the blues, I think, make him a little bit darker, and the magentas, even maybe not much with the magentas. The yellows maybe a bit. Ooh, a lot with the background. Okay, there we go. So this is what's called non-destructive because I can just hit the eyeball here, bloop, go right back to my cover again. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Now, I can actually, this is really kind of interesting because if I go into the channels, you're going to see that we have these RGB channels. And the RGB channels signify the different colors that make up the image. Now, if for screen work in Photoshop, you're using the RGB channels. But for printing, we would use the CMYK. So CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and K is for Kelvin for black. So if you want to have a higher quality print image, you usually want to convert it to CMYK before you send it out. Whereas if you can see here, I can click on some of these different aspects and you can see it's taking those things out of the image. Take out the blue. Those are some of the things that happen to it. All right, I'm going to go back over here to layers, and I'm going to undo this adjustment layer. I'm just going to take it right out. Boop, like that. Okay, now the other thing that I want to be able to do is I'm going to show you how to use an infrared approach to your black and white. Now, infrared photography is really interesting because you can actually get an infrared camera. And an infrared camera is like that's a hardware thing. We're infrared lenses. But we can do some of the infrared effects in Photoshop, not quite as good. But basically what it does is it takes some colors and it just makes them look totally different. And so the way I would do that is I'm going to hit Control J, to create a new layer, I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to invert it. So I'm going to go up here to Image, and Adjustments, and I'm going to go to Invert. Now it looks weird. We don't want that. That's okay. This is where it gets kind of cool. I'm going to go over here where it says Normal, and I'm going to go to Color. Check that out. Way cooler. Super neato. Mosquito. Now, we'll do more of this when we're doing the color unit, but I'll just show you really quickly. If I go into channels here, and I select one of my channels, look at the cool effects that it can do. It's pretty neat. Oh, that one looks actually kind of awesome. Okay, but I'm going to go back over here, and now I'm going to put in this black and white adjustment layer on top. Now, what's really interesting about this is that now it's done a lot more to these colors, and it's made them a lot more interesting. Now, even if I didn't, I'm going to just undo this here. Go back, and I'm just going to put this adjustment layer back in, and I want to show you how much of a difference it makes. So take a look. If I'm just using the adjustment layer on top of the infrared versus if I get rid of the infrared, look. Do you see that I have a different effect that I'm getting here when I'm using the infrared layer versus I'm not using the infrared layer? So using the infrared layer, I can do a lot more interesting stuff with my image than I might have been able to do otherwise, which is pretty cool. Some neato stuff that you can do. Okay, so I'm done with that. Now I'm going to show you, this is a destructive black and white technique, but it does some pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to take this guy off here. The other piece that I want you to know is I'm not going into all the depth that they did in one of the other videos that you watched, because they do some really cool stuff in those videos. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you something called calculations. Now calculations are also super cool. So get rid of that. So we start back here. So a little, there we go. Image, then I have adjustments, and then I'm going to go over here to, where the heck is it? Why can't I see it? Okay, this image is not under adjustments. It's image and then calculations. Now take a look at this. I'm choosing which channels I'm going to use. So source one, I can go to the green, and I can say I want to do blue. And now I can also say, oh, what blending mode am I going to use? And I'm going to say, I'm going to use a multiply, but I'm going to bring the opacity down a little bit. Actually, this is not destructive. This is a non-destructive. And I can even just say, I can change my blending mode. I can go soft light, I can go hard light, vivid light, linear. There's a lot of different things we can do. Multiply, color burn, that's too much. Lighten, screen, color dodge. There's so many different things we can do. But then it's also, I'm choosing the different channels that I'm using, about how that I am, and it does, it's a pretty incredible thing that you could do. And it's really going to give you so, I'm just going to have to ask, I'm really sorry, if you're not a Photo 30 student, I need you to keep your voices down because I'm trying to record this lesson right here, and it's a little distracting for me. Thank you so much. Did you guys hear me? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I'm just going to hit OK. So that's using the channels, and you can go on over here and you can see all this different crazy stuff that's happened here. Some nutty, cool stuff. All right, but I don't want to really use that, so I'm going to go back. There we go. We're back to our normal one. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you how to use. So we did calculations. We can also, actually, there's two more things. I can go over here to black and white again and add this adjustment layer. But then what I can do is I can change these different ways that the blending modes. I can do some really cool, interesting things with the blending modes. Do I have the right one chosen? Yeah, I think I do. It's some really, really cool stuff. And now these blending modes is not something that we use that often, but I honestly really think we should. Okay, I'm going to take this away here. And I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to, now this is a destructive black and white mode, but it's actually super cool. So I have to go into image mode, and oops, sorry, let's try again. Image mode, and I've got to go to grayscale. I have to do this. So I've gone to grayscale, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go image, mode, duotone. Now this is super cool because what it's doing is it's actually taking these different colors and it's mixing them to create a black and white image. Now, sometimes this will maybe work better for you for when we're doing color, and I can show you a manual way of doing this as well later on. But what I really love about it is that it creates some black and white effects that are just gorgeous. And you have a bit more of these like tonalities to the colors, which gives the images more dimension. Guys, I just really need you to not be talking right now, okay? Thank you so much. So the more colors you add, oftentimes the more tonality you get. So you can see this one here is 3 different colors that it's combining here. So there's a million different things that you can play with here. I would suggest because we're doing black and white, that you don't go crazy with the colors. Because some of these will have some like brighter colors in there. That's not going to make it quite as black and white. And you'll see that once you start playing around with this a little bit more. Like this, for example. I wouldn't use this, but you can see that it does some really interesting, cool stuff. Okay, so I showed you calculations. I showed you duotones. I showed you infrared. What else did I show you? I showed you the adjustment layers. There's more things that you can use within the videos that are there already. I'm going to put up this picture if you want to do some. So I would like for you to try some of these things out with this particular image in D2L. And then for 30s, I'm going to put your final project in. And your final project is you're going to be doing your own black and white photography and how you're going to edit it yourselves. There is some ways that you could do black and white within the camera itself, but don't do that. It's always far, far better to retain the color information from the camera and then convert it to black and white in post-processing. Because the camera is just not going to do it justice to the kind of work that we want to do. Okay, thank you so much. This video will be posted up on D2L.